Hezekiah, when he became king, he took all the pagan God worship and stuff that they were doing, and he destroyed it, basically, brothers and sisters. And he started to reestablish the righteousness statutes of Yah. And he started to have the people doing what was right according to the will of Yahweh, his Father, the Creator, which is our Father, the Creator, those of us that believe and do his will, basically, right? If you are a non-believer, then you believe in some stuff that don't pertain to Yah. If you believe Yah, then you know you got to turn back and start doing things right. Because if not, that lake of fire that he going to throw you in for eternity, you don't just die and poof, that's it. No, he going to give you a brand new spiritual body, and then he going to throw you in the lake of fire where you're going to feel everything for everlasting. It's not Monopoly. You don't get a get out of jail card. Once you're in this thing, you are in. And people don't want to fear death. They don't want to fear the lake of fire. Like, oh, man, I'm going to be all right. You know what? Because God knows my heart. Well, you know what? God do know your heart. That's why he keep deceiving your butt. Because he know you're foolish. But Yah knows your heart too. And he's trying to wake you up so that he ain't got to throw you in the lake of fire. But if you don't want to wake up, then you leave him no other choice but to throw you in the lake of fire at the appointed time. Right? 2 Chronicles 30, let's pick up at verse 1. 2 Chronicles 30, verse 1. You get that, brother, go ahead.
Hezekiah sent word to all Israel and Judah, and also wrote letters to Ephraim and Manasseh, inviting them to come to the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem to keep the Passover to Yahweh, the Father of Israel. For the king, his officials, and all the congregation in Jerusalem had agreed to keep the Passover in the second moon.
Wait a minute. See, the law said the first moon, didn't it? Why are you doing it in the second moon? Because if we go back and we read in the law, Yah says that, hey, if anybody is ceremonially unclean, you can't come before me. But in my mercy, I'm going to give you a do-over if you can't do it on the first month. But you're supposed to do it on the first month. So in the second month, for whatever reason of a dead body, or you far away, you can't make it, when you get back to Jerusalem in the second month, you can keep it. See, Hezekiah would have kept it in the first month, but they weren't prepared. Why? Because they were dealing with a bunch of false doctrine, God worshiping, idol worshiping, and now he's trying to clean house for Yah so that he can bring Yah's people back to him so that Yah can bless them, right? So he says, for the king, his officials, and all the congregation of Jerusalem had agreed to keep the Passover in the second moon. So he said, look, we need to fix this stuff urgently, right? And they all got together and said, okay, well, we know in the law, he says that if we were not ready for the first month, at least we can do it in the second. If you miss it in the second month, then you just lost it for the year, basically. And now you might have some trouble down the road. Go ahead, verse 3.
Now they had been unable to keep it at the proper time in the first moon because the priests had not consecrated and sanctified themselves in sufficient numbers, and the people were not gathered together at Jerusalem.
So here people coming to keep the Passover and they're not even prepared for it, right? So now we got to get this thing together and get people prepared because it's important, not only to us, but to the Father. And the Father wants us to understand how important it is for us, right? Now, they had been unable to keep it at the proper time. They weren't able to keep it in the first moon, right, at the green ear. He said, because the priests had not consecrated and sanctified themselves in sufficient numbers. So there wasn't enough priests ready to offer up the sacrifice for Yah, right? And the people were not gathered together at Jerusalem. Remember, they didn't come all down. He said, 3 times out of the year, all your meals are supposed to appear before Yah in the place he chose. The place is already chosen now. So now the Feast of Unleavened Bread, where the men at with their families, right? That's what we said. Where they at? Well, they missed the first original ordinance of the Passover, unleavened bread. So now they know they got a little bit of mercy, a little bit of time to get themselves together and at least keep it in the second moon of the second month, right? Go ahead.
This decision seemed right to the king and all the congregation. So they resolved to issue a proclamation throughout all Israel from Beersheba to Dan, inviting them to come to keep the Passover to Yahweh, the Father of Israel, at Jerusalem, since they had not held the Feast of Unleavened Bread according to what was written for a long time. The runners went throughout all Israel and YaHUaH carrying the letters from the king and his officials with the following message. Children of Israel, return to Yahweh, the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. He then will return to the remnant of you who have escaped from the hands of the kings of Assyria. Do not be like your fathers and your brothers who trespassed against and wronged Yahweh, the Father of our fathers, who handed them over to desolation as you see.
Wait a minute, how do you wrong the Father Yah? By being disobedient to his will, right? He says that for those that hate me, how do you hate the Creator? You don't do his commandments, right? You don't be obedient, you don't follow his ways to salvation. So what did he call them though?
Do not be stiff-necked.
So don't be stiff-necked, don't be hard-headed, right? Just turn around and do what is right, according to the Father. Go ahead.
As your fathers were, but submit yourselves to Yahweh. Enter his sanctuary, which he has sanctified forever, and serve Yahweh your Father, so the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. If you return to Yahweh, your brothers and your children will be dealt with compassionately by those who led them captive, and will be permitted to return to this land. For Yahweh your Father is merciful and compassionate. He will not turn his face from you if you will return to him.
See, if we just turn back to the Father as a whole collectively, then the people of this country won't be so rough to deal with. They won't be killing us in the street. They won't be locking us up. They won't be raping our women. They won't be giving us welfare, right? Because y'all will make it to the point where we will be able to really stand as a people. Right now, we're just all messed up. Why? Because we are full of leavening. We are full of false doctrines. We are full of traditions. We are full of philosophies and theologies, right? This is our problem as a people. We can't come together. Why? Because we let God divide us. And the Creator keeps saying, come back to me. I got this, I'm waiting on y'all to come back. Come back to me unleavened, right? So he sent the runners all through the country to get the word out, the decree, right? Go ahead.
So the runners went from city to city throughout the land of Ephraim and Manasseh as far as Zebulun, but the people ridiculed and mocked them.
See, when you try to tell people the truth, they think it's funny. Man, you tripping, man. That ain't what, that's written in that book for real. I ain't never read that, right? Really, that was in there? Yeah, it was in there for you. Because it's your history. It's your doctrine. Right? So, but the people were so busy worshiping God and the Son of God that they didn't want to come down and worship Yahweh the Creator. They thought it was funny. Really? Okay. Keep playing. Go ahead.
Nonetheless, some from Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem.
See, the first thing you got to do when the Father calls you is what? You got to humble yourself. You can't come with pride or anger or foolishness. You got to be ready to listen and get yourself together. So you got to be humble, right? Go ahead.
The hand of Yahweh was upon YaHUaH to give the people a unity of mind to obey the orders of the king and his officials, which followed the law of Yahweh. A huge crowd of people, a numerous congregation gathered together to keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread in the second moon. So they rose up and took away the altars in Jerusalem, and also removed the incense altars and threw them into the Kidron Valley.
So all the things that they used for their false worshiping of gods, Hezekiah cleaned all that stuff up, got rid of it, right? Go ahead.
Then they sacrificed the Passover lambs on the 14th day of the second moon. The priests and the Levites were ashamed. So they consecrated and sanctified themselves and brought burnt offerings to the house of Yahweh.
See, when people start doing things that's right around you, and you say they're doing what is right, now you begin to feel bad yourself. So yeah, I better get in line too, right? So sometimes it's called what? Peer pressure, you know. But right is right, plain and simple. When you qualify, you tried it, and it is what it is, and true. Right is just right. What's wrong with being right, right? You want to be right in some foolishness, why not be right in the truth, right? No matter what nobody says, because when you start dealing with the truth, people say you're dealing with the truth, and it is right, they know it's right, but they don't want to deal with it, now they got a problem with you. Now they want to try to vex you and fight you and argue with you about their foolishness is what is right. They know it's wrong because they love that leavening, right? But go ahead, brother.
Then they stood at their stations as prescribed in the law given through Moshe, the man of Yahweh, and sprinkled the blood which they received from the hands of the Levites. Since many in the crowd had not sanctified themselves, the Levites had to kill the Passover lambs for all those who were not ceremonially clean and who could not consecrate their lambs to Yahweh.
See, for those who weren't prepared still, even though the Levites were getting themselves together, and the people who were supposed to come and kill their lamb too, they couldn't do it because they weren't ceremonially clean, right? So the Levites had to take over for them and kill their sacrifice to Yah, basically, right? Because again, you got to get yourself together to deal with Yah. You don't want you come around half buttoned around. He wants you to have your full attention. And he wants you to deal with him in righteousness, right? So he says that since many in the crowd had not sanctified themselves, the Levites had to kill the Passover lambs for all those who were not ceremonially clean. See, this is the reason why Yah allow us to be able to partake in the Passover in the second month, because something might happen out of your control and you can't come to him all dirty and messed up. So he said, okay, take 30 days, get yourself together, and then let's do it again in the second moon, right? But go ahead.
There were a multitude of people, especially from Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun, who had not cleansed themselves, yet they ate the Passover contrary to what was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them and said, may Yahweh, who is forgiving, pardon everyone.
So even though some of the people did partake in the Passover and they weren't prepared to take the Passover, Hezekiah knew this and he prayed to Father Yahweh, right? He says, may Yahweh, who is forgiven, pardon everyone. Forgive them, for at least they are trying, at least they did show up, right? Have some mercy and give them some pardon, right? Go ahead.
Who determines in his heart to seek our Father Yahweh?
So forgive those who have determined in their heart to seek Father Yahweh, right? So these people that came down were seeking the Father, right? Those who wasn't that ridiculed and laughed stayed where they was, and then what happened was the king of Assyria came back down again, invaded, and took them back out of the land, right? But go ahead.
The Father of our fathers, even though he is not cleansed according to the specifications of the ceremonial purification of the sanctuary. And Yahweh listened to Hezekiah and healed the people.
Wait a minute. Because Hezekiah took it upon himself in his heart to do what is right by the Father Yah and to try to get the people to do what is right by Father Yah. The Father said, even though they are not ready totally, I'm going to forgive them because you are doing enough to please me, basically, right? So it don't take a whole lot to do right to make the Father happy, but we work real hard at doing a whole bunch of stupid stuff, foolishness, and wickedness, which is only going to get us in trouble with the Father. I'd rather be right and be able to move freely than to be foolish and keep getting my head punched. One more place. Let's go to 1 Kepha chapter 4. 1 Kepha chapter 4. One more place here. 1 Kepha chapter 4. So let us keep the feast unleavened, right? So we should know that leavening represents hypocrisy, false doctrine, and sin. And we want to come out of all that stuff by being sincere and truthful by the keeping the will of the Creator, the Father, right? So now, let us keep the feast unleavened. 1 Kepha 4, pick up at verse 1 when you get there, brother. Go ahead, because at the end of the day, the Passover is still all about YaHUshua, the Almighty Son of Yahweh, giving up his life for us to have a second chance to be redeemed from all our sins and foolishness, right? But once you get redeemed, don't go back out there doing all the old things, because you're supposed to therefore purge all that stuff out of your life, basically, right? It's not an overnight process. It does take time, but right now while you're alive, you got time, you got grace. Grace is time allow for you to get yourself together before the Father cuts you off and send you back to the earth, to the dust of the earth. 1 Kepha 1 and verse 4, chapter 4, go ahead.
4:1.
Yep.
YaHUshua then having suffered on your behalf, that you yourselves might be armed because of his suffering, and cease from sin.
See, so YaHUshua then having suffered as our Passover sacrifice, right? on your behalf, when you come to the knowledge of the truth, that yeah, you sinned and Easter was not your salvational doctrine, that the teachings of Yah through YaHUH brought you to him, and now you're being redeemed with the precious blood of YaHUH the Mashiach, right? He says that at the end of the day, you either cease or stop sinning, right? Stop breaking the law, because the sin is the breaking of Yah's law, right? The commandments. Go ahead.
In order to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer by human passions, but by the will of Yahweh.
Right. We're not walking around an emotional mess. Why I can't do this no more? My family's still doing this, and I love used to. No. Hey, we focus now. Because what Yah is telling us to do is minimal. What the world say do is a whole lot. And it ain't going to get you nowhere but the lake of fire, right? So he says, in order to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer by human passions or desires, but by the will of Yahweh. Go ahead.
For it is enough that in time past you performed the will of the Gentiles, living in licentiousness, lust, drunkenness, revelries, banquetings, drinking parties, and abominable worship of gods and idolatry. Now they think it strange that you do not run with them in the same excesses of dispensation, and so speak evil of you.
See, so now because you changing your ways and you trying to live right, someone like, oh yeah, you doing that? That's good. Yeah, that sounds like that's right. You know, but then your real hardcore friends, they don't care, like, oh, so you're going to change, huh? You're doing something else now, right? You used to do this, you used to do that, now you don't want to do it no more, you know? Now you got a problem, now y'all got to separate, y'all can't be friends no more, because the truth will put a division between you and your foolish friends. Go ahead.
But they will have to give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead.
So, but at Judgment Day, if they didn't get themselves right, they got to give an account of why they didn't worship. And then when they get done explaining, he's going to throw them in a lake of fire. Go ahead.
For this is the reason the message was indeed preached to the spiritually dead, that although they are judged according to men in the flesh, the dead that is, they are given the opportunity to live according to Yahweh in the spirit.
So the spiritually dead are those who don't know Yah, those who walk around and hold fast to the traditions